Press the button. Oh, yeah.
Hello and welcome to a Bergkamp Wonderland, the slickest of all Arsenal podcasts. We are definitely told by our main producer when we will be going live and when the button will be pressed. So much so that when one of the panel puts a tweet out to say who exactly he thinks is on the show, he gets two of the names wrong. And what can I say? Other than I'm going to have to introduce the other people, and it definitely wasn't me that said that Carl would be on. Because John was meant to be on instead of Carl, but neither of them are here, so you can be equally disappointed in both sides. However, I am joined by Ellis Mel. Ellis, how's it going?
Hello. I was going to try and do a Carl impression, but I couldn't really think of how he sounded other than a deep voice. So, fucked that one up already, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, Happy New Year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Happy New Year.
Good, isn't it?
Arsenal's back and stuff like that. And yeah, my other panelist, if we can call him such, I couldn't at him on Twitter, although I did try. So he probably got the notification through another account. So he's there, kids. He is watching. He knows where you are sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He is much like the Santa Claus, but the opposite. It's Chris Carpenter. Chris, how's it going?
I'm good, Josh. I'm good. I'm still not on Twitter now. It's now been nearly 3 months since their last email correspondence where they said that they were getting to the case. And I'm still here, floating like a turd in society, just round and round the bowl and not getting anywhere. So there you go. I'm not missing it that much, though. Is it still awash with, turds, I presume?
Oh, no, it's so much better now. It's been great for the past 3 months. It's been probably the best website known to man. Everybody's so positive on it.
Oh.
All the turds have been banned, haven't they? I think they did like a big purge on Twitter of all like the knobheads and annoying people that followed Arsenal.
Pretty much like me, then. Yeah.
I mean, there's only a couple of Trump bots, but it's all your favourites. It's great. It's probably my favourite place to be right now.
Excellent. I'll have to hop on the ABW account and just tweet some bullshit and see what I get back.
Don't do an Ellis. Right. Where should we start? Because we have very little agenda in terms of an agenda type plan on what we were going to go through. We did it in 30 seconds. We've been here for half an hour already doing what could be described as a pre-pod meeting. But it was very much not that. So it's been a couple of weeks since we've done a proper podcast. Ellis, what have you made of our turnaround in form? Because it was all doom and gloom last year. How do you feel now?
I'm in a much better frame of mind when it comes to Arsenal. Much like Chris, I've been avoiding Twitter, but actually on purpose. Like, that wasn't taken out of my own hands. Just because it's been a rough sort of few months, hasn't it, really? Like, I've not really been on the pod for a while, but I'm glad I haven't really, with the sort of results we've had and the form and the performance we've been putting in. They were just getting a bit boring and just we were running out of things to really say. Like, we couldn't really say anything positive. And then all of a sudden, we managed to string 3 wins together, which I never thought I'd be saying a couple of weeks ago, that's for sure. So I think part of it is a bit fortunate. I think Arteta's had his hands played with who he's had to play, and luckily it has worked out, bringing in Emile Smith-Rowe and getting Martinelli back from injury and Saka hitting a bit of form and Tierney sort of playing with a bit more freedom on the left back. I think that's all sort of combined to make us a lot more better attacking. Again, Chris mentioned it previously before the start of the show. Other than the Chelsea game, although Chelsea are in a pretty shit run of form themselves at the moment, these are teams that you'd probably, I wouldn't expect us to beat anyone with our form before the end of the year. But yeah, they are games you expect to get a win, but to actually score more than one goal and not from a set piece in the last 3 games, and a few players more than one actually hitting form together, it's quite good. It looks a bit bright. There's a lot more work to do. I think we all know what our weaknesses are. They're laid bare for us for the last few months, and how our performance are going. It's a bit of a mixed bag, really, isn't it? It seemed like a month ago everything that could go wrong was going wrong, whereas now it seems everything's sort of going in our favour and we're getting results to match it.
Yeah, one of the players you mentioned there as well, Martinelli, seems to... Chris, would it be a very lazy analysis to say Martinelli has completely turned around our fortunes? Or do you think it's a bit more than just his arrival being the catalyst for the good form?
I mean, everything we say on this podcast is lazy, first and foremost. So let's get that out of the way. Yeah, I don't think it's lazy. I just think that he's part of the inner workings of a transformation in style, in approach, in philosophy on the pitch. There's a freshness about the squad we've got at the moment, and I'm not going to be the Debbie Doommonger on the pod this week. You know, I'm not going to sort of say, well, it's only and we have to, and all those sort of phrases. I mean, I might venture a couple of those at some point, but I do feel like that there was a little bit of an element of these changes were forced to a degree through absentees, and the players that have come in, what you basically want from them is to step up and to make an impression on the side and then take their place. And I think 3 players in particular have done that. They're in the squad on merit. They should stay not just in the squad, they should stay in the team on merit. Martinelli worried me a little bit because I felt like we almost rushed him a little bit too much initially, especially when he got a couple of knocks. But he just epitomizes everything that we should be building on in this squad in terms of youth, freshness. He's got that desire about him. He's a little warrior, he's a little pit bull, and he's playing like a player who's just missed playing football. He's got that hunger about him, and I think that goes along with it. But the good thing about the West Brom game in particular was the fact that we didn't need to keep playing him. You know, we could also take him out of the firing line, give him a bit of a break, and the team still performed. So we've got to keep him fresh. But yeah, he along with a couple of others have been that breath of fresh air that we needed, and hopefully he'll stay in this team now because he deserves to at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Ellis, as you think we can kind of keep this form going as well? We've mentioned some of the players that are coming in. Someone like Martinelli, we're worried about his injury record. We do have Emile Smith-Rowe, whose injury record, should we say, is not the greatest. Is that a potential where, you know, the entirety of the wheels could fall off if he ends up picking up an injury?
Well, yeah, I suppose it's how much you put, like we were just saying, how much you put this good run of form to the introduction of him, Martinelli, the form of Saka, just those 3 young players playing well and making things happen. I think he is a player that just seems to me to be that link between midfield and attack, whereas previously Xhaka, Ceballos, Elneny, they just weren't really making that link. There was a very distinct sort of gap between our midfield and forwards, and our forwards that we've been playing weren't dynamic enough to create something. But with Emile Smith-Rowe, Saka on the right there, Martinelli, and Lacazette with his form that he's in, there is more movement, there is some sort of creation there, and I think he is a big part of that. It is a bit worrying, like you say, if he gets injured and we lose him, does it all fall apart? Maybe not, because he isn't the sole cog that I think that is making this work at the moment. But we definitely need some backup in the form of that sort of attacking midfielder, because let's face it, Ceballos can't do it, Granit Xhaka can't do it, Partey is better than those two, but he's not that type of player. So if we lose him, that is going to be a potential new cog in what is making us work at the moment. So I'd like to see us potentially, if we could, I'm not saying we are going to be able to, obviously there's the breakout of the new strain of coronavirus that sort of put our country into turmoil, which might impact the transfer window in January. Who knows? Football doesn't really seem to be sort of phased by it all. That seems to keep going on. But I would like us to try and get someone either in sort of backup or potentially competition for him to make sure we have got something there when he does. And if being Arsenal, he probably will get an injury and miss a number of games. And also he's only young, so he can't play 90 minutes week in, week out. He's going to have to be rested like Martinelli was against West Brom. Yeah,
and I think to come in on that as well, one thing that I think is a huge difference with Smith-Rowe, more than other, say, number 10s that are at the club, but not necessarily in the squad, to put it politely, without naming certain individuals, is the fact that they're not fazed by playing in a different position in that front three. Happy to rotate and do a bit of the job of, if Saka comes inside, they'll jump out to the right wing. And you know what? They'll be up and down, protecting their fullback as well. That kind of dynamism, I think, is what we're really missing in that kind of... And the player that I think we all know that I'm alluding to, also saying that that's the one. In their particular tweet post game, isn't it amazing when we have a number 10 like Smith Rowe, what we can achieve? Because he is the only one like that in the team and in the squad and at the club as well. But I think going into the kind of the squad shape and the fact that we need, some players to come in, I think it makes sense to talk about the transfer window. It is open. Every ITK has come out of the woodwork, shall we say, out of lockdown, and they're already splurting all of their nonsense across the internet. Apart from Chris, because he doesn't have that option at the moment. But Chris, in terms of, I know, right? It was inevitable, wasn't it? But strangely, we've got no one French to talk about, or from the French league, or at least not that I've seen. Is there any rumblings of the French league? Apparently, everybody's bankrupt there, other than Lyon and PSG, because I don't want Lana coming to hunt me down and, slitting my throat when I, say that Lyon don't have any money, because they do actually have money. But yeah.
Less said about that, the better, because I'm not 100% sure they have got that much money. But, we won't incur the wrath of the good lady. But basically all French clubs, apart from PSG, have not got a lot of money, whatever you read. But it's just some are managing it better than others, shall we say. And Lyon are managing it slightly better. But this is a Lyon who also are going to sell Memphis Depay and Bellerin, who said, within the next 6 months. So, make of that what you will. But, transfers and stuff, I think it is quiet. We had a question from some bloke called Carl. I don't know who he is. Sounds like a guy who probably should be doing some work. But he said could we see the lowest spend in the January transfer window history with the global pandemic in force? And I don't know about you guys, but it feels a bit weird to me in that we're obviously broadcasting from the UK. We're all based in the UK, and we've just been now told that we're going to be in lockdown now until probably mid-February by the sounds of it. And it doesn't really seem to have affected anything to do with football at this stage. But I believe the Premier League confirmed there was 50 cases in the last week, the highest number since it's all gone down. So it does make you wonder if clubs abroad will be, or even players abroad will be looking at this and thinking, well, I don't really want to go and join a club where just put yourself in a player's position. You sign for a new club in January. You can't necessarily come over to sign the contract. You then sign for a club where you've never actually visited, potentially. You then have to find somewhere to live when you can't actually go out. You can't familiarize yourself with your surroundings. You can't get a tour around the area you're living in. You can't meet people to socialize with. You may not be able to bring your family, children. You can't put them in schools. All these little things that I think people probably have just forgotten in a sense of, yes, it's all right doing a transfer, but there's a whole lot else that goes with it. So I do think in Carl's point there, I think we probably will see a bit of a lesser spend this summer, or this January, sorry. There's only really been a couple of transfers so far. I didn't realise Jeffrey Kondogbia has moved today to Atletico Madrid, so that's done. Etienne Capoue has gone to Villarreal from Watford as well, there too. But we've done 2 bits of outgoing transfer business, which I guess we'll come on to in a minute. But I don't think we're going to be doing a huge amount coming in, to be perfectly honest. I think we may get one short-term either deal or loan deal, but I don't think we're going to be going ham on the transfers in. And now we've shipped out, in particular, Kolasinac. That frees up a space, doesn't it, to bring somebody in? So and Dani Ceballos is one of 2 loans that were allowed, if I'm not mistaken. So that opens the door, I guess, for certain players. As for the French transfer market, I mean, it's kind of open season, really. If Premier League teams want to buy Ligue 1 players, they know what they need to do. Just turn up with a bag full of money, and they'll probably get their man. So there's a few players that are attracting interest, but I don't think you're going to see big transfers. I don't think you're going to see large superstars moving.
Isn't there that good young centre back at Nice? Is he available?
What's his name? Are we talking about the one that may just have left Arsenal, or are we talking about one that actually is?
Oh yeah, he left Arsenal, didn't he? Oh yeah,
That's the
him.
one. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, and we'll probably never come back. Maybe we'll go into that in a bit more depth. But yeah, I think there's a few players. I did chuckle to myself this afternoon when one Julian Draxler was linked with Arsenal again. I wondered if that was Carl maybe starting that rumor, if he's got that kind of sway in the world. But it's actually a deal that would make a lot of sense. But he's a very Pochettino player, so I think he'll probably get a chance at PSG first. But yeah, I think you'll probably see a few clubs dip into France and just test the waters, because nobody really knows who has to sell and who doesn't at the moment. So I do think you'll see a few Premier League clubs that will have a little go and see what they can prize out for cheap.
What about Yamin Villa? I hear he's a good CDM.
He's still playing.
Him to Arsenal?
he's still playing. I tell you what,
really?
Yeah.
Who's he playing for?
Plays for Olympiacos, I think, or I don't know if he moved for Olympiacos. He certainly was there last year.
No way.
There is one player I would make an inquiry over, genuinely, seriously. St Etienne have released Stéphane Ruffier from his contract. He's the goalkeeper who's been in exile basically when he fell out of Claude Puel 6 months ago and has not played. He was their number one. He's an experienced France international. He's got as he's 34 years of age. He's a steady pair of hands, which, God bless, but Runarsson probably wasn't the last time we saw him. It's clear that we don't want to play Matt Macey, so I would maybe have a little sniff for him on a short-term deal. The problem is, I think he's probably going to want to play, and there's a few teams in France that could do with a goalkeeper. But I would definitely be having a little sniff around him if he fancies coming across, because that would be. I'd rather get a goalkeeper like that who's 34 and experienced than waste another couple of million on a young goalkeeper that we're going to have to wait for a long time to get ready.
Sensible move short term, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Mark Poom signing. The Mark Poom, the Mark Schwarzer, that kind of deal.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I don't think it seems odd to say this. I don't think we need more than one player to come in at the moment. The market's in such an odd flux at the moment, and we're in such a position that, it's better off just to, hold on to our eggs for a window, see what comes around in the summer, because we know how many players we've got on, end of the contract kind of deals. Julian Draxler, to be another player, is also what his contract expires at the end of the season as well. There are a high number of free agents available that could bolster our squad in the summer. And for now, the only, like you say, Chris, with the goalkeeper, I'm not wholly worried whilst Leno still can tie his own boots, put his gloves on, that we don't need another goalkeeper, or at least we don't need another goalkeeper till the summer.
It's the what if, isn't it?
Yeah, there's the what if.
We're in trouble.
Yeah, and it's the same with Kieran Tierney, isn't it? That we have done a little bit of risk making. If Tierney gets injured, we're then moving to 5 at the back, in my mind anyway. And
or we could play Xhaka at left back again, like we did. Can you
imagine? The Emery era is either Xhaka at the back, Saka at the back, or Maitland-Niles.
Yeah,
and I think
neither of which really appeal in a left back role. No,
none of them. It's all makeshift options, really. There. So yeah, in terms of the incomings that we have been linked with, Ellis, one from your neck of the woods in terms of the club he plays at, not the fact that he's Argentinian. Emile Buendia. What do you think to the links to him? There's rumours of what the transfer fee might be, but from my point of view, I don't think Norwich are going to entertain any kind of bid of any amount.
No, if I'm completely honest, from what I'm hearing from people that like obviously I live with and know Norwich fans, like he's worth too much for them. Like I think we talked about this off air on a WhatsApp chat. Like I didn't realise how much Premier League promotion was worth. I thought it was only worth about 100 million, but inform it's like 250 or something mad like that now. And he's a big part of that. He is easily their most creative player. He is integral to them getting promoted this season if they can manage to do it. I'm not saying they can't get promoted without him. They can, but if they're going to lose him, they're going to want a hefty sum of money, which I don't think A, we've got, or B, we'd be willing to part with, even if we did have it for a player. I think it makes logical sense with us leaving Europe and the fact that he's in England, playing in England. We're not going to need it's not going to be difficult to integrate him into a league that he's already played in. But it's not going to be viable. It's not viable really for what we can afford to spend on him. The only way I could see it is potentially with cash plus one of our young players that could probably do really well at Norwich. They are quite good at developing young players. They could probably develop Nelson on, but then are you going to want to get rid of Nelson, Willock, maybe even Nketiah, when you can probably sell Nketiah for some money rather than send on loan, because he's already had loans, and I think for me personally, he's not going to make it. So I think it's a bit of a no-go. I would love him at Arsenal, don't get me wrong. I think he's a quality player. He's really good on the ball, and he reminds me of sort of the old school Arsenal attacking midfielder, not exactly very athletic, but very good with the ball at his feet and very creative and sort of has a lot of flair to him. But I just can't see it happening, not this window anyway.
Yeah, and Chris, the other player, also beginning with B. It's like they're getting lazy, the journalists. They've only got to the B of the, we've seen they got to D with Draxler now. But Julian Brandt at Dortmund, it's an interesting one. I think your colleague and mine, in terms of Drew, has been banging the drum on what we could expect from Brandt and what his situation is at Dortmund. How do you see that one playing out? It's just a lot of talk.
It feels more like a summer sort of transfer to me, because I don't. Drew would probably know more than I would, but it doesn't seem like a deal that benefits Dortmund if he was to come on loan to us. It really doesn't. To me, it's sort of a Dortmund are going to potentially have a longer term coach appointed in the summer, because obviously they've got the guy in at the moment. I don't foresee him being there long term. I think they'll go for a more high profile coach in the summer, when there's probably going to be more of them sloshing around. So to me, it strikes me as that kind of deal. It's just not a deal that I just doesn't seem like a deal they would benefit from in January, really, because they're not going to be able to potentially have access to a replacement in January, and I don't really see why loaning out a player who would still do a job for them now makes any sense. It makes a bit of sense for us. If it was me personally, I would stay away from that deal, because for me, Brandt's a player who's... I just feel like he stagnated a little bit. I feel like he made the step up to Dortmund from Leverkusen, wasn't he? He was that before. Mm-hmm. And he looked a real player. And it's almost like what's happening to Kai Havertz at Chelsea, where I just wonder if it was a bit of too big a step too soon. Dortmund are a huge club in Germany. Aspirations for the title. And I know Leverkusen having a good season, but he felt like a good fit. And sometimes players maybe move, and I never really felt like he was going to be first choice at Dortmund with the amount of attacking talent they've got there. So I do, he's a good player, very good player, but I don't know whether he's the sort of player that I would personally be looking for us. I feel like we need something. I mean, Aouar made sense because of his style of play and the fact that he can play sort of wide as well as central and breaks the lines. Brandt, I don't really see as that type of player. It's a bit of a tough one for me. I wouldn't be surprised if he rocked up, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me personally. And I'd imagine he would be a fairly hefty transfer fee, and I'm not really sure where we're getting that money from either. And even a loan fee, you'd think that Dortmund would want us to pay pretty much all his wages, which won't be cheap either. So I'm not sure. And this is going to sound really harsh. I don't mean it to on Julian Brandt, but I sort of want Arsenal to move away from this. Well, that guy failed here, so we'll give him a go. And maybe failed is a bit harsh because he hasn't failed, but I don't think he's lived up to expectations, shall we say, in Dortmund. And I just sort of feel like he's another, rather than sniffing around Chelsea's bins, we're sniffing around Dortmund's bins. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather we go out and sign a player like Dominic Szoboszlai has gone to Leipzig today for 18 million. Well, we were linked with this player for months. He's an up and coming young talent, and I appreciate there's probably a lot of the Red Bull sweet sugary goodness gone into that deal, But, you know, for 18 million quid, you're not telling me that we couldn't afford Aouar, who was 45 million, or what Leon wanted, 40 million minimum. Well, why on earth were we not pushing for an 18 million player who's clearly got a massive amount of talent? Whereas Brandt, who I think is he 25 now, 26, something like that. I would rather be going a bit down the younger route where you can sort of say to the likes of Smith Rowe, you know, you're in a shootout, rather than, oh, hi Smith Rowe, you've done really, really well here, but here's this established German international who hasn't really done it at Dortmund, and he's going to come in and take your place. Goes a little bit backwards, do you know what I mean? I'd rather look to the future.
Yeah, he's 24, Julian Brandt.
24, okay.
So yeah, he's in and around.
So he's
that
still
kind
young.
of. Yeah, he's got 3 more years until you say arguably he's at his peak from a general kind of perspective. But it does seem, I don't know, it's one of those difficult ones that whenever you bring in a player who's going to come in above an academy player, even though you know we need to bring someone in that kind of role, it's always difficult to kind of stomach that we know Smith Rowe, who's done so well for albeit only 3 games, is now going to get less of an opportunity. It doesn't quite. Yeah,
I'd rather loan. I don't know if we've mentioned it or not yet. I don't think we have. But as much as he looks a little bit chunky right now, I'd rather go for an Isco for 6 months, who we know is only going to be here for 6 months, and then you can sell that project to sort of a Smith Rowe or another, and say, look, we're going to get in a bit of experience here because we need to rotate you, and we need certain players for the Europa League and stuff like that. We're going with experience, and you say that to him, and then to Isco, for example, you say, well, look, it's a good deal for both of us. You get playing time, you get an opportunity at a fresh start somewhere. If it works out, we may well look to sign you. If it doesn't, you go back to Madrid, you put yourself in the shop window, and you go and sign somewhere else. So that's.
Sorry, speaking about Isco, I don't claim to watch a lot of football at Arsenal. Even at the moment, I'm not watching much Arsenal. I can remember a few seasons back when Isco, to me, was a quality player. Has he still got that? Is he playing at all? Has he lost that? Is that a move? I know you said you wanted to do it, but is it realistically a move that Arsenal should be looking to try and do? Is he going to improve our squad?
I think so, because I think he's got something to prove. And I like play. It's a little bit like what we got with Ceballos, and yeah, I know some people are divided. I know some people go back and forth on Ceballos week by week. But when you sign a player who's been out of favour, he was playing every week before. I think even under Zidane's first tenure, I think he was getting game time, and then he just didn't. Who was the manager after Zidane? God, I've gone blank.
No idea.
Oh,
who was the guy?
Lopetegui.
And then he sort of dropped out of favour. So I don't know. Like, it's almost like what you see going on with Eden Hazard. Where you just look at that move and you go, "Well, that's just not going to work. He needs to move on." Players like that, they've got something to prove. And I think Isco it's not that long ago that he was the cornerstone of a Spanish central midfield attack.
Is he featuring at all for Real Madrid?
Not for Real. I'd have to check his appearances, but I don't remember seeing him in any lineups recently. I will double check that, but I think he's been in and around squads. I think he's had a few fitness issues as well, which
I was going to say that is anything that concerns me. Like, I'm not sure what his age is now, but he must be getting on a bit. He's potentially not featuring much for Real Madrid. So fitness-wise, injury-wise, like
he's 28 and he's actually played 10 games this season. So he is in and around the squad. That's I must admit, that's 5 more than I thought he'd played. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think like under Arsene, it would be like, oh, I'm not going to bring in an Isco because it'll kill Smith Rowe. That would have been the line. I don't think that would be the case with this deal, because
not a short-term loan. No, if it only loans at the end of the season, then it's just competition, really, isn't it? Like you say, that's how you sell it to them, I suppose, isn't it?
It's Kim Källström without the broken back, isn't it? It's an established international footballer who can add something, and there's no way that Isco wouldn't add something. If we're not going to, the only caveat to that is if we're considering bringing a certain German international back into the fold, which I still don't think will happen. But we don't know, do we? We don't know. Apparently he's training well and whatever. Maybe that will happen, but I don't think it will. But
I love how he's literally become Voldemort and we can't even say his name anymore.
Well, it is very much his PR machine that says he is training well. I think I haven't really No one else has said it. If you know.
I think there's been a few. I think there's been a couple of. I don't know. I couldn't name them name for name. But I think there's been a few journos that have said
that is something actually, Chris, that I want to pull you up on. I think kind of it was midway through podding when we were probably at our worst, and you wrote your fucking monologue about how much you disliked Arteta and what he was doing wrong. And there was a period, I can't remember who you're on with now. I imagine it was probably Dani. I don't think you were on it, Josh, but there was sort of like a unanimous decision that you wanted him back and you think it was worthwhile putting him in the squad and playing him. Do you still agree with that?
Yeah, I it's not so much that I want him. It's not so much that it's a unanimous decision. My main beef is that it should never have got to this point. I think that's my major beef. If he's not training well and if he's not in form, fine. But why you'd name Mustafi, Pablo Mari, fine, has come back in and played some games. But again, most of them have been very late in 2020, early 2021. So you could have made the argument to have left him off the squad. You certainly could have made the argument to leave Mustafi out of the squad or Kolasinac. That's what I have an issue with, is that as fans, we're just not being told the truth. That's what bugs me, you know. And when the thing that sort of, Arteta's a very, very good talker, and don't get me wrong, he's really good at that. But he's also very good at, you know, certain managers are brilliant at saying a lot but basically saying nothing. You know, they just talk. Mourinho is very good at it as well. He just says a lot of waffle, and before you know it, you're just sort of nodding along, and you go, "What did he even just say? I don't even know what he's even just said." Mikel's also quite good at that, cleverly flexing things. And I'm not saying that the club would ever have come out and said, "Right, well, we're not going to play him because of his comments on China and his comments on Muslims and whatever, his association with Erdogan or whatever it is." But I just, even if the club just came out and said, look, he's not going to be named due to off the field issues, you know, that will do. Let people speculate, because all people have done since he's been left out of this squad is speculate. That's all we've done. And even people like myself who 6 months ago moved on from Mesut are gradually being sucked back in, because we're now sitting here going, well, the one thing we've missed from until literally the last 2 weeks is some creativity. I'm not saying he should just parachute back in and be the solution to all of our games. I'd have Smith Rowe over him every day of the week right now. But there's got to be a place for him on the bench, you'd think, you know, or a place for him in our Europa League team, because he's the sort of player that might just win you a game when you need it towards the end of the season. But if he's not going to be, fine. But just come out and say that. And that's kind of that's the only thing I have a bit of an issue.
Isn't that what they are saying, though? They've at no point that they...
Yeah.
I mean, you say that we're not being told the truth. What if we don't know that? What if we are being told the truth and Arteta simply does not think that Mesut Ozil is good enough to play the way he wants to play? And yes, it was really fucking shit for a whole probably 2 months, diabolical. And I can see what you mean. Like you can look at that and think, well, surely Mesut Ozil could do something then. But I think that is just us as fans getting a bit desperate. And if he gets anywhere back near the squad, then I think that is just a complete detriment to Arteta's management. I think he'll be undermined. And personally, there's a lot of people out on the internet that still think Mesut Ozil is this god that was playing at Real Madrid. He came to us and he played really well. We won a trophy for the first time in ages. And then he tailed off a bit. And then he picked up, got his contract, and then he tailed off a bit. Then another manager left him out. He played a lot of bit for Arteta, because I think that is the typical standard cocky manager. Oh, yeah, the manager before me couldn't get anything out of this player, but I think I can. I can be the man that gets something out of Mesut Ozil. And I think if Arteta was to be sacked in that bad run of form he had, I don't think it's going to happen now, but say he was sacked and then someone else was brought in for January, I guarantee the new manager, whoever he is, even if it was a proper anti sort of Mesut Ozil type of player, would probably still try and get Mesut Ozil integrated, because he could be the one that goes, I'm the one that got something out of Mesut Ozil when this manager couldn't, that manager couldn't. But
yeah,
for me, I just don't think he is any good anymore, and I just don't think his heart's in it, and I just think he should. I get you why you're angry. He shouldn't be anywhere near this club. If he's not going to play, if he's not going to be registered, why the fuck is our highest earner there? That is frustrating, but as bad as it got, I still weren't in the point of frame to go, maybe we should try him. I don't know about you, Josh. Like,
I think that's my issue, though. That's what I... sorry, Josh.
Yeah, I'd say... I think the other way I kind of flip it is, however bad defensively we were, I wasn't calling for Socrates to come back in.
Yeah.
That's, you know, there is another player that has been left out for a reason. And
I mean, like, Ozil was actually good at a time. Like, Socrates was never really good for
I think
us.
Socrates in the system,
I don't think he
play
was
a
that
certain
bad.
system, is all right.
Oh,
He
come
can't
on,
play
he was
out.
never
He can't
good.
play. He can't play out of the back. And I think if you drop him into, I'm going to throw the old cliche, probably not a Big Sam team after we saw what, you know, a Big Sam team can do when it's not playing away at Anfield. It's that kind of backs against the wall, old school defending. We've seen this kind of rejuvenation of Rob Holding, who we've come from thinking was that kind of mindset, perhaps because of his heritage, you know, coming from the rugged northwest of England, being a Bolton lad, speaking with a funny accent, and, you know, had that kind of old school feel about him and becoming this kind of bit more of a cultured player. I'm just not sure we'd get that from, well, let's say in terms of Ozil, I think he was on the decline anyway. And however inexperienced or experienced the managers that have come in post Wenger have been, they've all tried. And for some reason, he's then not made the playing squads for the, you know, last few games of their tenure. You know, he didn't play under Emery towards the end. He just couldn't seem to integrate him in a way that was working. And we blamed Emery for that. And to be honest, the style of football didn't suit Ozil. And then we got Freddie in. Freddie brought Ozil back into the fray. Everyone was happy. And then suddenly, you know, we still weren't getting performances from him. And he dropped out in the end. Freddie was just like, fuck this, I'm playing the kids. And Arteta, again, we can look to the start of his tenure. Mesut Ozil came back into the squad. And it's got to be a footballing reason. And they've said it's a footballing reason. But remember, this is an asset we're also trying to get rid of and try and get money from. So we're not going to say, oh, yeah, the guy's a twat in training and he's shit. You know, he can't even put his boots on the right feet anymore because we're still paying him money and we want that off the wage bill. You know, we're getting to 6 months left because, you know what, people are looking and saying he's not a viable option. So we can't be, you know, sledging an asset that we want rid of.
But we're not going to get money for him, though, are we?
Oh,
Let's be
we're
honest.
not anymore.
I mean,
now.
And that I think this is. I guess to sort of answer your question, Alice, I like this. My thing is, I just kind of want to know. Do you know what I mean? It's not that I'm saying Mesut is the answer. I just want to know: is that fire lit underneath him, or does he really not give a shit? You know, would he actually come in? Because every player that's been questioned that has dropped us in it or has had, you know, bad patches of form, every single one of those players has responded at one time or another. You know, I wouldn't have Xhaka taking the toilet rolls out in our team personally. I just wouldn't. I don't rate the guy, never have, you know that. But he did respond to that moment of madness, and he has always come back. You can't fault the guy for that. He's always put a shift in. Alex Lacazette was, you know, lambasted by the online community, should be stressed, the online community, not the actual people who go to games regularly and saw the hard work he was putting in. But that's another story. He's come back and he's responded. We're waiting to see if Aubameyang will respond. I hope he will. Bloody better do on that money, but you know what I mean. There's, you know, Rob Holding was out the door. He came back in. He responded. David Luiz, to a degree, responded. Willian, probably less of the better. But, you know, most of them have come back and responded. And I guess that's just what I'm looking at. I'm just looking at it thinking, well, we're never going to sell him. Wherever he goes, he'll go for free. Wherever he goes, we'll still pay some of his wages because it's going to happen. I just wonder if you put him in, do you remember that game at Anfield? That Carling Cup game or whatever it was, Coca, whatever it was, whatever.
5-4.
Yeah, and I think the 4-all in the navy blue kit, and we put him in the team that night, and he was brilliant. He absolutely ran that game, albeit against the second string Liverpool team. And I just wonder, would we get that? You know, and we may only get that for 2 games, 3 games. We might get it for 2 months, 3 months. We might get it for 6 months. But if you're trying to sell and you're trying to recoup, you know, some money here, isn't that a better way of doing it? Because nobody's going to knock our door down going, oh, yeah, you know that guy who, you know that social media manager that used to be a number 10 for Real Madrid that you've got? Yeah, we'd like to give you 5 million for him or take his... Well, they're not going to do it because nobody really knows what he's doing right now other than sitting in his flat and tweeting. I mean...
Well,
nobody really wanted him when he was doing well, though, just before we signed him for a contract. There wasn't really any...
There wasn't the clamour.
No, there was more people going for Sanchez, and that might be the reason because they're both going free. So they thought of the two, we'd much rather have Sanchez because he runs around a bit more and scores more goals. But just for me personally, I can't see how it isn't footballing reasons. I just in this day and age, when, like especially given like Arteta and how bad it went, surely if it was just purely left out because of all the things you've listed and nothing to do with football, he'd be like, well, fuck it, let's put him in because I might lose my job if I don't buy this player, and he's still got it.
Yeah.
But if he hasn't got it, then he's not going to bother putting him in, is he? I think if Ozil still had it, if he still had that oomph to get there and perform and still had that fire in his belly, he'd be playing. He wouldn't be sat there tweeting about Fortnite when the game's going on, would he?
But he can't.
He'd be in the squad. I know he can't anymore.
I don't even think we've had offers, have we? I don't know if we'd had. Well,
no, and I think that's where, and I think I've said this now for it feels like 18 months. It might be less, but time has melded into a whole new reality since COVID. Exactly. Is that I am absolutely adamant that the guy retires in the summer. It's just written in this. There's so much proof in terms of people from that World Cup squad that have said they've just retired early because they couldn't get up for it. Per Mertesacker was one of them. Andre Schürrle did it last summer.
Yeah,
same generation. Khedira is still going around because he was winning titles at Juventus. You know, the guys still at Bayern. They're still doing it because they've still got some hunger somewhere. Ozil's won everything. He's done it. The only thing he hadn't done was sorted out what he was doing for retirement. So he's just launched a clothing brand. He got into bed with Matthew Flamini, so to speak.
Who wouldn't?
And doing a lot of work outside in the business roles. And it just seems to me it's completely written that he retires. Because if he did want to play football that much, he'd go out and find something.
I think he'll fancy MLS. I think he'll because you mentioned old German internationals that have retired. Bastian Schweinsteiger is one who finished it in Chicago. I could see Mesut popping up in, a Beckham fronted Miami or an LA Galaxy, or, he's good friends with Zlatan as well, who will probably give him a good testimony to go out there. And the other thing with a lot of the pitches in MLS, he would probably be able to get away with the what I call the Drogba rule. For those who didn't know, Didier Drogba refused to play on plastic pitches because of his knees, and it was written into his contract that he wouldn't play certain away games. You could imagine that being a very Mesut type of thing, I'm not going to play away from home. but in MLS, it's very different. It's very different in the
like
US.
Montreal, where Drogba
where you actually signed. Yeah, but you could even see him pitching up in Montreal under Thierry Henry. I mean, imagine that. But I could see him going out there. There's obviously the obvious links to Turkey. Because of his heritage and whatnot, but yeah, I mean,
actually, rumours won't go away, will they?
No, we don't get me wrong. I'm not. We do need Rid. We need to move on from. We need to move on from Ozil. We need to move on, more importantly, from that era. I just have that sort of thing in my head of going, look, we've struggled for creativity for 6 months, and we've had this player that, if he'd have been named on the Premier League squad list, all of this talk wouldn't have never happened. If he'd have been on that squad list but never picked, nobody would have said anything. Apart from his, like you said, Alice, there's that sort of, he can do no wrong crew. Fair enough, let them do what they've got to do. But if he'd have just been added on, or if he'd have just been added onto that list quietly, there wouldn't have been all this drama about it. And if Mustafi hadn't been on that list, nobody would have given a monkeys, because we'd have been like, well, he's clearly going to go as is Socrates, and that would have been it. But I feel like leaving him off that squad list, as well as Socrates, that's led to all this dressing room politics. And I just don't think it's benefited the club. And if he was on that list and he did play a few games and he stank up the joint, which, like we've all said, he probably could well have done, then he would have had no excuse, and we would have said, well, look, we gave you the chance, you didn't want to know, so well, all we've really done is just created a PR maelstrom, and we haven't benefited from it.
No, absolutely. And I think we'll move on to another one of should we say the clique around Mesut Ozil. We know that there are a group of players that are very close to him. We won't necessarily speculate on the disruption or not disruption they may have caused since the announcement that Ozil was, their best mate wasn't going to be in the Premier League squad or Europa League squad with them. And talk about Kolasinac, who has gone to Schalke for 6 months, taken a huge pay cut to go there, and we're not subsidising. He's taken a lot of wages that have gone. That he's just, we've dropped. How am I going to try and word this? Because I think I've messed it up. And if we were doing this live or not live, Dani would cut this bit, but we're not, because he doesn't do editing anymore. So if I remember rightly, Kolasinac has taken a 50% pay cut, and then Schalke are paying 50% of that, and we're covering the other half. So it's fair play that he's taken that kind of thing to go out and play. But how do you feel about the move, Ellis, that Kolasinac has gone out? It leaves us a bit short in the left back position.
It does, but I'm not going to lie and say that whenever he came on as cover, I was thrilled and thought we are definitely keeping a clean sheet. Nothing could go wrong with this guy at left back. He is solid. No, so like Chris was mentioned, I don't know what we have said in the whole of this pod, there is a group of players that you link this bit to that need to be gone, and he is one of those players that we need to get rid of, sadly. Like, bless him, when he first came in, he was a free, looked like a good bit of business. He had this period where he just sprint down the wing and cut it back, and we scored goals, and he was like, at one point it felt like he was our only attacking outlet with Emery. But then it quickly became apparent that he's not actually that good of a defender, and is much quicker getting forward, I should say, than he is getting back. So, yeah, I can't fault the guy for the effort that he tries, but I just don't think he was that good of a footballer, and I think there's a reason why we got him on a free, and that is because he probably wasn't really being looked at by anyone else. No one else thought, yes, we'll take him. Yeah, he performed well at Schalke. I think, was he in the German team of the season when we signed him on a free? So he obviously performs well there, and I can see why he's gone back there, because that worked for him and he worked for them, but he didn't work for us, unfortunately. So it was time to go. And as much as we give criticism to Arsenal for the dealings we have done and for the players we have signed, this is a good bit of business. If I don't know the numbers, but if what you're saying is true, Josh, and we have cut his wage by 50%, or he dropped his wage by 50% to go to them, and then we're only paying 50% of those wages, then that is a good bit of business. That is a good chunk of wage bills that we've got off, and we've got rid of a player that essentially isn't improving us in the slightest, and why is he even there? So for me, I think that's a good bit of business. I appreciate what he tried to do for us, and I appreciate he tried to play well, but he just wasn't really Arsenal quality for me.
Yeah, Chris, 6 months of the loan for a player that's got 18 months left on his deal. Do you think the only reason it wasn't a permanent to Schalke is purely because of their current predicament in the Bundesliga, where they haven't won a game and the chance of relegation? So he didn't fancy Bundesliga zwei next season, should we say?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's an element of, again, shop windowing, isn't there, with this deal? He's a bit of a cult figure, a cult hero at Schalke, so I can sort of see the appeal of going back. And I guess, he was always a good performer for Schalke. That was the reason why we signed him. As you mentioned, I think they're one defeat off of Tasmania Berlin's record of on the spin defeats. I don't think they've won in 30 games. Is that ridiculous now? Which is absolutely bonkers. But they're a massive club, and if he goes in there and he helps them steer away. Do you know they're being managed as well by Christian Gross? Remember him? If he goes in there and helps keep them up, then he's in the shop window. And the thing is as well, because of his Bundesliga track record, you could imagine another Bundesliga team having a look at him and thinking, actually, he's probably worth a stab. An Eintracht Frankfurt or a Wolfsburg or a Werder Bremen, a team like that, that's sort of mid-table, who might want an attacking fullback. The thing with Said is he was always he fit the Unai Emery system because he wasn't really required to defend too much.
Mm.
And even when he was required to defend, it wasn't really as a left back. It was as one of the players getting behind the ball as we were counter-attacked. He wasn't really in a position, was it? His primary goal in that team was to be an overlapping attacking fullback. And, whilst it was predictable, we did get some benefits out of his attacking style. And when you buy a fullback like him, you wouldn't buy Trent Alexander-Arnold to be your best defender, for example. You buy him for his assists and his overlapping. And, you only had to look at him last night. I think he gave the ball away the record amount of times in the Premier League for Liverpool, 38 times or something.
Yeah.
As good as he is attacking and as good as he is at dead ball situations, you wouldn't have him anywhere near the top right backs. You wouldn't put him in Gary Neville's class or Ashley Cole's class as a fullback. And there aren't many fullbacks out there like that anymore. Even the likes of Ben Chilwell, who's quite steady, far better going forward than he is going the other way. So I think Kieran Tierney is probably, we are a bit biased, probably one of the few left backs or wing backs who can actually do both jobs defensively and as a centre back, as a left back, and as an attacking force. Kolasinac was never that. He was always a guy who could attack, but as Alice said, defensively was always, you could see teams target him, and his physicality got him out of problems a few times rather than his actual tackling ability. But yeah, I mean, I could see him going to Schalke, and you know what? Fair play to the guy. He's left a bigger club to go back to a club that are really struggling. He has taken that pay cut, which benefits us. And for all his faults, the guy wants to play football. You can't knock that. And even if we can't get a fee for him or a particularly big fee for him in the summer, if he goes out and plays football, there's more likelihood that we can get something, or at least guarantee that we can actually get rid of him, so to speak, than like we said with Mesut. It's clear that he wants to play football. So hopefully he'll do well there and get himself a move.
Yeah, I think so. I think we know why he's leaving, and from our point of view, from a fan base, we've not seen him be a disruptive influence, so to speak. Whether or not what's happening in the training grounds is different. We don't see training every day. But yeah, from our point of view, he seems like an amicable departure, and he's going to do some great things, hopefully, with not his boyhood club, but a club that is very close to his heart. Now we've done the German clique. Should move on to the French clique at Arsenal. We won't talk about the high-profile strikers, French clique, but the younger side of it. Well, Dani has just hit the right button for everybody watching the stream. As we limber up, Christy, your stretches. Ellis, take a little bit, stick your feet up, because we are going to talk about Billy Saliba. And he has gone on loan to Nice. There is a pun in there if I worded it differently, but we're better than that, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's debatable, but yeah.
I've left it to you to. I've lined you up anyway if you want to use it.
Yeah.
Well, talk us through Billy Saliba, your thoughts, and then I'm sure we're going to not clash because we kind of went through our opinions on Saliba and where his angsts may lie and who's to blame for said angst as well. But yeah, go ahead first, Chris, on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy and I'm very sad all at the same time. I'm very happy that one of the most talented young centre-halves in European football right now is actually going to get the football he deserves. I'm a little sad because it's the club that I love who's treated him appallingly for basically 18 months. And I'll go so far as to say tried to destroy a young player's career in that time. And that might sound harsh to some people. It's how I see it, and that's it. I'm not going to change my opinion on that. We made a young talented player who, let's not forget, we outbid and fought off Bayern Munich and Real Madrid for, who were both in negotiations. He could even have ended up at Spurs. He was talked about as being interested there as well. We moved heaven and high earth to sign him. The fee for me doesn't. I don't really care, because I think, like John has always said, and I agree with him, I don't care if we sign somebody for 10 quid or 100 million. To me, a price tag is, who cares? Whatever a player's worth is, that's what you pay, and that's it. So that, the hefty price tag is always going to attract attention. But what you're paying for in that was a future. You were paying for potential. You were paying for a player that you invested in, and a player that you felt would be able to achieve at the highest level for years to come, to build your squad around at 19 years of age. What we actually did was we made a load of false promises that we couldn't back up to a teenager who we then forced to move country when it was clear that he was, quite close to his family. We know that he suffered family bereavements, which is, that's just unfortunate. Nobody could have foreseen that, but it was very clear that he was close to his family. So we've sold him a dream. We've moved him across the pond. We've promised him, we've told him to be patient for 6 months in his first spell. He was. We told him that we'd let him go. We'd stay, we would remain at St. Etienne for the first period of his contract, which he did. He performed very, very well for St. Etienne. Yeah, he had a few injuries, but he performed well. We then bring him back to the club again with this idea that we're going to integrate him into the squad over the summer. He's going to do pre-season. Okay, again, COVID hits. So you can't have foreseen that, but these were the things we told him. And then we basically just went back on all of that. The manager changed, the boardroom changed, the people that made these promises, one of them being Raul Sanllehi, he left the club, fair enough. Edu being another one, has just sort of, essentially because he's gone so far in backing Mikel Arteta that he's forgotten the promises that he's made to other players. And Saliba being the prime example of that. And one thing I have a real issue with, and I'm quite glad I'm not on Twitter for this, because I imagine the "I told you so's" are already out in force of going, well, was he really even that good? Everybody was ready to see this kid play. And anybody who's actually watched him play, put your hands up, will tell you this kid is going to be brilliant and he's going to play very, very well. And we're going to look very, very stupid if we end up selling him for less than his market value, or we don't bring him back to the club. And it's not a knock on Rob Holding at all, because he's done brilliantly, but we couldn't have done worse than chucking him in alongside Gabriel for the start of the season and seeing where it went, or at the very least having him in the squad, integrating him properly, giving him Europa League and Carling Cup games, and giving him that opportunity. And again, I know people say, he was appalling in that practice match. Who cares? Who cares if somebody's crap in a practice match? I literally couldn't give a toss. And do you blame the kid? He's barely played, and you throw him into a practice match behind closed doors, basically tell him, perform well today, mate, and you might be in the first. It's a lot of pressure on a kid that we've messed around, and we've fucked with his career for 9 months and given him all these false promises, and now we've pulled the rug out from under him. So I'm really pleased for him as a footballer that he's going to get game time. He'll probably make his Nice debut tomorrow night, which I'll keep a close eye on. Is he the finished article? Nope. Is he going to make mistakes? Yep. Well, so does Wesley Fofana at Leicester. And you don't see the Leicester fans going, oh, he's a bit shit, or don't think we should play him. You get, Ryan Aït-Nouri at Wolves, another one. You've got to, if you're going to bring in these players, you've got to invest in them. And I think we've made a real cock up with this one. Mm. And I worry that we're not going to get what we paid for him back. No way. And if we and this party line of that Edu came out with, he's going there to get playing time, and we see our future in him. Well, okay, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but prove that, because I don't think we'll see him back at the club. I think come the summer he'll be gone, probably for about 7 or 8 million quid, and I would not be at all surprised if he pitches up at a very big club in about 2 to 3 years when he's done his apprenticeship, if you will. And he may well end up at Nice for another year or so, and then he'll be another one of those players, that we ship out on loan for another. It'll be another Joel Campbell, ship out for another year here, another year there, and then he'll either go for big money and he'll do very, very well, and we're just going to look stupid. So yeah, sorry, a bit of a rant, but I don't think he's been given a fair shake of the whip, and I do hold Arteta a bit accountable on some of this, because I don't think he's been fair on the lad, and I think he's made his mind up far too quickly just because of the friends that Saliba might have, if you catch my drift on that one.
Yeah, I think it's an issue in terms of who people are friendly with. should we say, in football. So whilst we're saying, Saliba is friends with Guendouzi, and there's that history there, I think the other thing from Arteta's point of view, I think it could go right back to when we signed Saliba. Arteta wasn't even our manager, wasn't even in the thoughts of anybody that would be changing from playing 3 at the back. So at that time, yeah, we need centre-backs in. So having 7 centre-backs on your books isn't necessarily a problem because you're going to be rotating in batches of 3 instead of batches of 2. Especially when you have a manager who isn't as concerned, should we say, on which foot the player in the back line plays with dominantly. When we then bring in Mikel Arteta, he starts with 3 at the back, but quickly he's going to want to move to playing 2 at the back. But we haven't lost any centre-backs in that point. In fact, we've gained them in a slightly different way because we've reduced the number of players he will play on the left side of that defence. He will only play Gabriel there. He will only play Pablo Mari there. And if both of them are dead, he will play David Luiz. That's it. If not, he will even fold back and play 3 at the back and play Kieran Tierney on the left-hand side of that 3-man defence because he wants that left footer in there. So then the poor kid comes in, realises he's got Rob Holding in front of him, Callum Chambers in the injury or medical centre, who, like it or lump it, unfortunately is established at the club and is probably going to get a viewing from the manager before he does or get a chance because senior players. And then you've got, and I go through the senior players, Mustafi, David Luiz, and you've got Socrates in there. So that's 5 players that are all ahead of this kid at the moment on not footballing quality, because football, we all know players don't necessarily get in the starting 11 because they're the best player at the club. There's also that experience that comes in there. And whilst I don't know if Arteta did do the background on Saliba, watch the games for him, probably not. But again, he's got a squad of 33. He's got a fuck ton of players to look through. He knows Socrates isn't for him because he's had that time with him. And for some, by hook by crook, Mustafi drags himself out of horrific form and just being unplayable for us to somehow having a rotational need or getting to that position in the squad. Rob Holding, again, another player that we thought would probably come out the door, has also shown this great run of form. He's been converted from playing on the left side of defence to the right-hand side. And I think you said before as well, we don't begrudge Rob Holding for being in that position. And I think we'd all say Saliba should be rotating with Rob Holding. But he's also got to deal with the fact that he's got to be giving someone like Mustafi and David Luiz a bit of game time.
No. See, that's where I completely disagree.
I think they cause such a problem in the dressing room if they're not playing at all.
Tough.
So
does Socrates, who we didn't even name in our squad.
No, exactly.
And that's why. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you there.
That's all right.
But this is where I have this beef. We're talking about in the summer going out and signing a right-sided centre half. Okay. How long did it take us to find Gabriel? How long have we, as Arsenal fans, how long have we been saying, what we could do with is a decent, high-quality centre-half who's both young, athletic, has sell-on value, and has potential? And we stumbled blindly into Gabriel. None of us, me included, saw him at Lille, thought, yeah, decent player. Did I think he was quite ready for Arsenal, first team? No, I thought Saliba would get more chances than he would initially, if I'm completely honest. But he's come in and he's been brilliant. So you've got that. And, he's in, he's done, he's through the door. We have 4 centre-halves who are no longer going to be part of this squad in less than 6 months. Socrates, David Luiz will go in the summer, I'm pretty sure on that. Or at the very least, will have a reduced contract. Mustafi and one of Callum Chambers or Pablo Mari, because there's no way you can keep them all happy. And for me, Callum Chambers is far better as a holding midfielder anyway. Personally, I would have him sort of further up the pitch if I could, or have him as backup in that position. So this is my beef. Like it's not like the Ozil situation where there's been so much gone on and there's so much cloud and all. This is just a kid. If you don't like him hanging out with Guendouzi, okay, no problem. You ship Guendouzi off to Hertha Berlin, right? Well, we've done that. He's now playing out of his skin, by the way. So you ship him off to Hertha Berlin, and then you say to William Saliba, right? Okay, we felt that he was a bad influence on you. Felt that he was a distraction. We still want to invest in you. So we're going to give you this playing time. He's been playing very well in the U23 games. So, we keep banging on about the fact we waste money in the transfer window, and we've got all these players on high contracts, and we're spending all this money on players that we don't need and players we can't get rid of. And now we're pushing out one of the highest potential players we've got at the club before he's even had a chance to prove he's good enough. And for what? To go out and spend money on another centre-back in the summer who may not be anywhere near as good.
It's just weird, isn't it? Because at least Guendouzi got, I know most of his starts or playtime already were established under Emery, but Arteta did play him for a bit. He's not even given Saliba a chance. And I'm not as invested in a young French player as you are, but it's just a weird one, really. Whichever way you spin it, it's a failure. It's either a failure that you've let down a young player who could potentially be good, or even like I know you're leaning towards more him going on and becoming a great player at a good team. We're going to look like idiots. But even if he doesn't, you spend quite a lot of money on a young kid. Didn't even play the fucker. Send him out, and if he doesn't make it, then that's just a waste of 20 million. You don't even try to see if it was even a good purchase. It just doesn't. It's just a really bad bit of business, and we've sat on this podcast and I praise the business of getting Kolasinac out, but this is more of the same from Arsenal, really, buying players that either we don't use or don't want, or just not really giving them a chance to develop into what. At some point, somewhere, someone at this club, a scout or a manager or whoever or both, have thought this looks like a good player that we can put a lot of money. We can't let him go to Tottenham. We're going to put a lot of money down and get this player in and develop him. And then, in the space of a year and one alone where he got injured, but he still featured, didn't he, at St. Etienne before he got injured. And then again, the whole fucking debacle about not letting him play in the final, fucking hell. That makes it worse. We don't fucking play the fucker after anyway. So you can sort of tie it with, maybe not play him because we want to use him. We don't want him to be injured. But then we're not using him anyway. So who cares? Who gives a shit if he gets injured?
And again, I'm not having a go at Arteta, but this is the same manager who pushed to sign Willian. Who's now judging how good a young player. I think that the small problem that Mikel does have. And again, I know a few people seem to think I've got it in for him. I really don't. I'm happy as anybody that we've turned that form around. And I'll repeat again for the 100th time, I hope it works out for him. But I do think he still has an awful lot to learn as a manager, and player management and not being stuck in your ways are two of the biggest things he has to learn, because we're going to be having this conversation about Pepe in the summer. I'll tell you that for nothing. We're going to be having that conversation because, Martinelli's coming in and has done brilliantly. Smith Rowe has done brilliantly. Saka on the right has done brilliantly. But that's created another problem now, because now he's just not going to use Pepe. He didn't use him much before. Again, whether, like you said before, Josh, the 72 million quid, we're paying it off in installments. We're still going to have to pay 72 million quid. And if we put him on the open market this summer, we will not get a penny more than 25 at absolute max for a player who still, arguably, I think, has a massive future, but only if you let him do what Saka's been doing, which, by the way, he never did. Saka's a brilliant young talent, but he still makes, he still tries things. And he's
at least Pepe's getting occasional games. I mean, he is featuring occasionally. Saliba literally got nothing.
Nothing. I wonder how much of that with Pepe was about the club saving face and basically having no other options. But I take your point there. But
I would say on Pepe, there's something wrong with him as well as the player. That is not the player from Lille.
He's not. No, he's not.
Shadow of the imagination. He's not even trying to do the things, even outside of managers' instructions, there's still stuff that naturally that player would be doing if he was happy at the club or
the system is
settled. It's not necessarily the system. We saw Saka. I'll go back to just the last time I can think of a player doing it for us against Brighton, where Saka turns down Bernd. Pepe's got that in his locker. Arteta's not telling Pepe not to do that, and that's a very simple part of Pepe's game that he has got. But you don't see that from him, and it's that kind of fire in the belly that seems to have. And I don't want to tar him with the same brush. It's the Malcolm.
He's not got Arsenal in his blood, has he? But Saka has. No. Saka would fight for the badge. But then Martinelli would, and he hasn't got Arsenal in his blood. So I do get it. But...
has Pepe... He's got his big move, that kind of thing. And he's just stagnated a bit inside himself because what is there for him to fight for?
He's never been trusted.
It's also a lot of pressure. Like you said, 72 million, regardless of his installments or not. If you're a player, you're like, fuck me, they've spent 72 million on me. I've got to perform, I've got to do well. And that's going to affect him. And like you said, he's still very young. He's still very early on in his career. And
it's our fan base as well. Let's not get that twisted. It's our fan base. You don't hear the same discussions being had about Donny van der Beek, who was one of Ajax's best players since Frankie de Jong, who signs for Manchester United for massive money and can barely make their bench. You don't hear Man United fans giving it, I don't like Man United fans like anybody, but you don't see their fan base losing their shit over every little decision that Solskjaer makes by not picking him, do you?
Yeah, because they're doing free Donny, but you might have missed that. Hashtag free Donny.
That's a Twitter thing,
free,
is it? Okay.
Hashtag free Donny.
I'd take him in a heartbeat in our midfield.
Absolutely. But we know, if you look at the long term, you know what they're doing. Van der Beek is Pogba's gone in the summer, and he's the Pogba replacement.
Yeah, true.
They've brought him in a season early. In terms of what we're doing with Nicolas Pepe, it's so difficult because
losing money.
And he's helping that as well because he's not doing anything when we give him the option on the field to really do anything. His natural quality gets him through in the Europa League, but when he needs to show some kind of industry or show some kind of the stuff that I know we don't play to his entire playbook, but there's some of his playbook that he could be using at Arsenal that he's not.
I don't think he doesn't feel the love, does he? I think he knows what all the fans are now very clearly know, that Arteta doesn't fancy him. That's the long and short of him. I can tell you how good a player he was in France. You can look at your own clips and see how play. And I still think he would have a future at Arsenal, but only if he's deployed the right way. And only
those clips though, and like me and Josh share a WhatsApp group with some guys that we play FIFA with, and Chris Lodato, friend of the pod, put like a montage from YouTube in there, and so many of his goals were coming from Central. He obviously had like a lot more freedom to run, whereas rightly or wrongly, again, this is Arteta's first proper job as a manager. He seems very strict in his positions, and you more often than not will see Pepe on the far right, literally on his own, on his toes. Maybe Bellerin might come a bit close to him, and it's just you're not going to get that performance out of a player playing with half a pitch because he's going to touch.
Then I think the thing with Pepe is his delivery is so good over a longer range that's why we kind of keep him isolated in that way. From when I was watching a lot of kind of the goals and his assists, there's not a huge amount of tippy-tappy interplay on there. It's very aggressive runs from him, and he's playing a 1-2 off another person who's doing that. He's not the one that the ball comes into him and he's laying it off for Aubameyang.
No,
he is the Aubameyang in that situation.
And also, he doesn't have that player in the Arsenal midfield either, does he? There isn't that player to do that for him.
And the Lille midfield was made for him to go and express himself. If anything, like you said, personally, he didn't really play centrally for Lille, but he would drift into that area because essentially what Lille did is they put three midfielders to do the hard work. Xhaka was one of them who would just sit at the base of the midfield, and then they had this attacking. They didn't have a sort of 4-3-3. They just had three forwards: Jonathan Bomber, Victor Osimhen, and Pepe, who essentially Galtier would just say to them, just go, just play, just express yourself. And 1 minute you'd see Bomber on the left, then you see him on the right, then you see Pepe centre forward, then you see Pepe right. They just constantly intertwine. And Osimhen was the one who got the majority of the goals because Pepe's danger and speed and aggression at getting from one box to the other in terms of counter-attack would often draw defenders away. Whereas now, I think in the Premier League, he's easy to defend against, because all the defenders that play against us know that he hasn't got that creative license to drift. Whereas in the Europa League, for whatever reason, probably the standard of opposition, in fairness, but he almost is freed up. It's almost like Arteta sort of says to him, well, actually,
Well, and that's the thing that I kind of annoys me with the player, is he doesn't show that aggression.
It's not his personality. No.
Yeah.
We've signed the wrong player.
We see it's like aggression as a personality or aggression on the field. We were just talking about how aggressive he is on the ball and how he'd run at players. And he seems to have not got that. And whether or not it's not always system, it's the belief in himself. Can he get past these guys?
Oh, that's massive. Yeah, I agree with that. He's going in his confidence.
I don't think he feels like if he comes up against a Ben Chilwell or Andy Robertson, he doesn't feel like he can get past them. It's that mental block. It's the confidence shot.
And wouldn't your confidence be on the floor if you knew that Willian was going to get picked ahead of you every single week when he literally does the sweet Jesus of fuck all?
Well, I think that depends. Because, they played well. I'd say on Willian and Pepe's, I've never seen a time where Willian started over Pepe on the same side that Pepe played as. If you go back into it,
I'm thinking
if you can find it,
starting spot. But I know what you mean.
If you find it, Willian has never started over Pepe. For Arsenal, I think Willian has started over other players, but it's not Pepe. I think Pepe has, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to say we don't play to the system, I think he hasn't helped himself in this situation either. I think he's almost playing. He's playing like a player who knows he hasn't really got a future as well, which it's sad. Yeah,
and I know we started on Saliba, but it's the same.
Well, yeah,
same situation,
I think I can take it to another player as well who is rumoured to be coming back to us. I don't think it's confirmed yet from Atleti, and that is Lucas Torreira. Lucas.
I've got some info on this, but carry on.
No, I'm going to pass it over to you because you've got anything more on little Lucas than I do.
It's just that I alluded to it earlier on in the pod that Atletico Madrid have signed Jeffrey Kondogbia this evening, and that has gone through. Forgive me, I don't know how many appearances Lucas has made for Atleti, but they play in the same position. And I sent a little WhatsApp to somebody about half an hour ago and just said, "Is there anything in this Lucas deal?" And he said, "Very much so, yes." So it sounds like there is a possibility that we might look to bring him back. And again, that would make sense because if you look at Xhaka, El Nene, and Partey, who all play in that position, Ceballos is a different type of central midfielder. They all offer us very similar things, don't they? Big, tall, strong, aggressive, physical presences. Torreira is more what sort of, the Guendouzi style of play, or arguably the Ceballos, the player who's going to sort of weave in and out of that midfield and make some spaces, receive the ball and make some, more athletic, if you like. Xhaka and El Nene are not particularly athletic, and Partey is, but more in a Vieira mould than a sort of smaller, nippier, creative destroyer, if you will. So, as I say, not saying it's definite, but I wouldn't be surprised if we. How many times has he played? Do we know?
Kondogbia came in on the 3rd of November because he was the player that they got once we did Partey.
That's right. Yeah. So
it came in.
They just couldn't actually get him until the transfer window opened in January. That's right, isn't it?
No, I thought he played for them. I thought he'd been playing for Atleti. I think he's played 12 games for them. I thought he'd come straight in because La Liga have the weird rule, where you can bring people in. He has played. Oh, not many minutes though. Looking at it, match day 9 is his first game for.
Atleti. So they've rubber stamped the permanent deal. Then I'm guessing is that. So did they do a loan deal?
No, it's the weird. Oh, what is it? What do they call
we need
it?
Joel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's where we need Joel. It's the one where how they got Martin Braithwaite in.
Yes. The emergency.
It's the emergency transfer that you get your little joker, and they played their joker card after we got Partey because we didn't give enough time for them to get a new signing in. So La Liga give them 2 weeks to then get someone from another La Liga side, which seems odd because then surely Valencia then get 2 weeks to get someone and it continues forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Until the next transfer window where just a player keeps moving around. But
so if they've made that permanent, then that means that I guess that means, so if they've taken Kondogbia on a permanent basis now, then because Torreira's made 6 appearances, I don't know whether he's been injured, but that says to me that he's not particularly in favour.
He was meant to be little Lucas was meant to partner Partey, or that was the idea that they'd had. That's what I'd heard anyway.
So we can do that now then. If we bring it back.
Yeah, exactly. We can now do what Simeone wants to do and partner them together. I wonder if a certain German that we have spoken about already leaves the club, that Torreira is more inclined to stay.
Yeah, maybe.
As their relationship isn't the best. So I would wonder if that's something.
Would you both have it back?
I would. I think Lucas. The problem is Emery broke him. He's not the player you saw under Emery. He was the player at Sampdoria. He was the player you saw for Uruguay. He is not the box-to-box guy. The box-to-box guy for Uruguay is Bentancur and Nate Nandez. And then they had, I forget who was in the number 10 role for them. Off the top of my head. But anyway, Lucas is one kind of anchoring, but he's the kind of shuttler, a bit like Kante. That kind of role. That he's going to go in, destroy, put his body on the line, do that. His biggest issue is he's not aerially that great. Yeah. And unfortunately for the Premier League, or for him in the Premier League, that's something a defensive midfielder, unless you're Kante levels of interceptions, you're going to need to be good at. You're going to need to be good at the air, or you need defence behind you that is good in the air. I think maybe we might have that now that we've got Rob Holding and Gabriel. And the way we play under Arteta is we're controlling more of the possession. He's very good in the kind of tempo. He's got a great range of long passing as well, so can pick people out. He's a good option instead of Granit Xhaka, put it that way.
Yeah.
But whether or not he's just said, you know what, I'm done with Arsenal. I just need a clean break. I think that's what going to Atleti was going to be for him. And if he goes, right, it hasn't worked in Spain, hasn't worked in England, I'm going to play super safe now and I'm going to go back to Italy.
Yeah.
And I think that might be his one. And that's a player that I think we've got a group of players out at the moment that we're trying to fatten up for a sale that I don't necessarily trust will get the figures we want for them. A bit like Saliba, that if that's the only option we're at now is fattening him up for a sale, don't think we'll get the fee we want for him. Again, Lucas Torreira with the other one, and Guendouzi.
Yeah.
I don't think we get the fee that we deserve for Guendouzi because of the market. I don't think he has a future at the club, but in the same instance, you still want to get a decent fee for him and what he's worth. Yeah. And I'm not too sure we do. But we've done through outgoings. We've done the incomings. I think, there is one other outgoing, and I'm not sure how breaking it is of Eddie Nketiah or how much we are in the rumour mill, because I haven't seen many of the rumours. But it's also a couple of questions we have, if I can quickly find who asked some of these questions. James Howson asked Eddie or Balogun. We have got another one for Eddie in here somewhere. Phil Macker is asking about Eddie Nketiah and Balogun in the same way. I even put a tweet out going about Balogun. We've got to make sure we clear the decks for him if he's going to stay. So, Ellis, what are your thoughts on Eddie Nketiah? Do you see him having a future or at the club? And what do you think about Balogun? Should we be making sure he can get game time because where we failed other youngsters?
For me, I'm a bit done with Eddie Nketiah, really. He's a good backup. I'd rather give Balogun the chance. I've seen Balogun play a couple of times in Europa League now this season. I think he looks like a good prospect, someone who's going to need game time, someone who could be off, and we could miss out on another good youngster if he doesn't get game time. And I think Eddie Nketiah's had plenty of chances. He's had a good loan. Well, was it a good loan at Leeds? I don't think it was it? No, he's a loan.
I would say
he scored a few goals, and I don't think he was massively successful. I don't think it really changed him as a player.
Eddie bottled his loan at Leeds. Let's put it that way politely.
All right, we'll go with that then. Bottled his loan at Leeds.
He also loved him.
Yeah,
but he's just not Arsenal quality. I think he's a good little finisher inside the box. I know he's got an incredibly good record for England at the youth levels, but just for me, like, I'd rather give someone else a chance. I think he's had ample opportunities to break into this team, and with the form of Lacazette and Aubameyang, it's not like he's gone in, yeah, I can take this position now. It's not really stamped that position, and I think potentially we could get, like, I think Chris mentioned in pre-pod, or was it? We've been talking for so long, I can't tell if it was on the podcast or when we were talking before it. But potentially Wolves are linked with a 20 million move for him. I'd bite the hand off. 20 million for Eddie Nketiah, yeah, easily. Reinvest that in someone else. Keep Balogun, give him more game time, and then potentially come summer, decide on what we're going to do with Lacazette and whether we need to get someone else in or not. I just, for me, Eddie Nketiah, we could do better, I think, personally.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Chris, what are your kind of thoughts on there? I knew there was something that you'd said about my comment about his loan.
Yeah, no, I by the way, I've just checked with the same person about the Kondogbia. Yeah, you're right. November was when the permanent transfer came through. But the ratification's been done in this window, apparently. That's really confusing, isn't it? Anyway, and yeah, he has said apparently the Torreira thing, it's the player that's keen to come back. So that's interesting, isn't it? So there you go. You heard it here first, Collings. Yeah, so Nketiah. I'm with Ellis on this one, 100%. 100%. I can't, this is going to sound really crap, but I can't explain what it is that just doesn't convince me. Do you know what I mean? I genuinely don't know what it is. I just feel like if Nketiah was starting every week for Burnley, for Newcastle, for, I always say Everton, think of someone new, someone in that ilk, I'd be like, yeah, that's his level. You know, like I couldn't imagine Dominic Calvert-Lewin at Man United. You know, not because he's not a good player, but I just feel like Everton's his level. And I know that's really arrogant because we're whatever we are in the table, 12th or whatever we are, but we are a massive club. Let's not mess around here. And I just feel that he's kind of only really got one skill, and that is popping up in the penalty area and scoring from 10 yards, which ironically we spent years trying to find, didn't we? You know, the fox in the box, and now we've kind of got one and we're trying to ship him out. It's not that I don't like him, I do, but I feel like his sort of striker, I think Balogun has a lot more potential, whereas I feel like Eddie, do you remember when Francis Jeffers was breaking records for England under 21s when he was like 26? You know, like it feels a bit like that with Eddie. It feels like he's always going to have that England under 21 record because he's been playing for them for so long, and at that level he'll always get goals. But I just feel like at the very top level, he just does, there's something there that just doesn't quite convince me. And again, I hope I'm wrong, like I really do. But if we like paint a scenario, Alex Lacazette says, actually, do you know what? I quite fancy the return to Lyon in the summer. Okay, no worries. He goes for 10 million, and we start next season with Aubameyang and Nketiah as backup. Would you be happy with that? I wouldn't be. But if I said to you, we'll start next season with Aubameyang, say Edson Odward and Florian Balogun, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'm cool with that. We've got a player who's on the up in Edward, who's, you know, established and has done it, you know, albeit in Scotland, but has done it at a good level and played for France under 21s and is a consistent goal scorer. And then you've got Balogun, who's still learning and is going to be training with the first team every other day. Then you've got two options. But if you're saying, I'll give you Nketiah and Balogun, to me, you've got two players on a very similar level, but one with a trajectory like that and one with a trajectory of sort of there. You know? Yeah. And again, a one-trick pony. I think Balogun can play so many different roles. and he just looks like a silky technical player, whereas Eddie just
Eddie looks like a man. Eddie Nketiah looks still like a little boy.
That's it. Yeah, he sort of reminds me of like I've already mentioned him once tonight, like a Chris Kiwomya. You know, a guy who's he might have done well at Ipswich, but he was never an Arsenal player. You know, and maybe that's harsh, but I just think 20 million. You've got if that's what's on the table, then you know.
I think it's the. I think I was going to describe it. The word I would use, and I think the word we're kind of all looking for, is aura. And Nketiah doesn't have an aura around him. You know, Lacazette is bigger than his shape. No, it's not just the mince pies. It's he's got that something about him. Again, Aubameyang has got that when he's on the field, he is larger than life, especially when he's doing well. It's that kind of arrogance, or whatever you want to call it. Balogun, as soon as he stepped on that field, you felt something completely intangible, something completely irrational, and you have no reason to justify it as why they're the better player. But there is something in there. I have no idea what it is, but it's something I think we can all feel, and we should push through it. For me, I thought the weakest part of Nketiah's game was his build-up play. And to be successful at Arsenal, irrespective if your main goal or main ability is scoring from less than 10 yards. You know, what's his longest? I think his furthest goal he scored for us is 12 yards out. Nketiah, and he's got, I think Dani had given us the stats on Nketiah. He scrolls back fervently whilst filling time. 57 games, 12 goals, 33 of those appearances in the Premier League, 4 goals there. And all of them in the penalty area, very short distances that he's getting them from. It's something that, whilst that's great, we need a bit more from somebody. It's a bit like when Alexis was scoring all those goals in his final season. Great, he was providing us 20 goals, but if he'd looked up past it and was less selfish, we'd have 40 goals. And I think that's the same with Nketiah, is that it's great what he's giving us when he's scoring, but when he's not doing anything, he presses well, but that's just about it. You know, pressing and scoring from 10 yards out is great, but if after, the great run of form we're in, as much as we've shouted the praises of Saka, Smith Rowe and Martinelli, we've also got Lacazette, who ties those three together, is a sounding board for them. And you can see in the move that we all lauded the second goal against West Brom. Who's key to that? You might say it's, Smith Rowe, because he's the guy that puts the final ball in and starts the move with the kind of dynamism and the agility. But that ball into him comes from Lacazette.
Yeah.
And that's what we kind of need in there, is we need a player to do that. Can I see Nketiah doing that? Those kind of neat touches in and around the corner?
He hasn't got that in his game. No.
He hasn't got it in his game. And
he needs to play as well. He's at the age where he needs to be in the first team every week, doesn't he? And Wolves are quite useful at buying highly rated teenagers for vastly inflated price tags who aren't really good enough. See Fabio Silva. So all we need to do is just maybe change Eddie's passport to Portuguese, and we're rocking. But
I think that's a thing as well with the option for Eddie, is he becomes homegrown next season, so Wolves will be all over that. And the thing I've noticed about Fabio Silva, he can get in the positions. He can bring in Neto, he can bring in Podence, but he can't finish chances off.
No, he should never.
If you stick Nketiah next to him, that's a great partnership. It's a player I was going to say was Kevin Phillips. Yeah. He's got a bit like that, but he needs an Niall Quinn to really show what he's got.
Yeah,
and I think that needs a partner in there, and he's not going to get that at Arsenal because Aubameyang isn't going to create a partnership with him. Because Aubameyang wants to create the partnership with the, more selfless guy. And Eddie isn't selfless. No. Lacazette's already got his partner. He's going to partner with everybody. It's fine. But Lacazette also plays in Nketiah's position. We're not going to play both of them together. We tried that. It didn't work. So, I think it is a case of, I wish him all the best. but he's not. He could be Arsenal quality in terms of the number of goals he produces, but I would never wish him necessarily coming back in the kind of role as first team striker.
And you made a great point about English premium, because with the Brexit deal and everything, he's going to make more money. We'll sell him for more now than we would have done a year ago. And you look at like that West Brom team, for example, you can imagine him going in there, couldn't you? The lad went from West Ham, Dean Garner. Like, you can imagine him being a West Brom centre forward every week. But I can't see him as a centre forward for Arsenal every week. If he went to Forest or Bristol City, or I'd be like, yeah, that would make perfect sense to play every week. But for us, it's a little bit to me like Tammy Abraham. Never convinced that he's good enough to play up front for Chelsea. He's nowhere near good enough to be playing ahead of Giroud, but I'll leave that for my own time.
There's a surprise.
But he's not. He's nowhere near. He's not positionally aware. He misses far too many chances. His movement isn't anywhere near as good. Like Bristol City, when he was in the Championship, you'd have seen him plenty there, Josh. Like, he looked quality because he was playing.
I watched him at Villa as well. I saw him live a couple of times.
Yeah.
In the flesh, he's a great Championship level. But to bring some of the French bias away, he also shouldn't be playing ahead of Timo Werner in that kind of position either.
No, or Kai Havertz or any of the players they've got there.
And one thing I would like, before we move, I hand over to you, Chris, for questions, would be talking about the kind of, we've been bemoaning about how we've got all these players stacked up on big contracts that we can't get rid of, and that how we seem so bad at selling. And Nketiah's got less than 18 months left on his deal, and we're selling him. That kind of tells you that whilst we've been shit in the last 4 years, the tide might be turning, and these are the kind of deals we want to look at. That we are looking to move players out now a little bit earlier. I think Kolasinac, if we could have done a permanent deal, I think from his point of view, Schalke are on the edge. He's not the player that necessarily is going to be directly influencing whether or not they stay up. He's just a cog in the team as a left wing back. If a striker goes there, they've got a bit more confidence in their ability and might sign for 18 months. But for him, I think, we are looking now at those next stages, and Rob Holding's another player. We're looking to extend his contract rather than, maintain that value. And I kind of sit it with the Cedric deal as well. Cedric isn't going to be here after the next summer. We're going to go through this summer. He'll be here another season, and we'll sell him.
I wouldn't be surprised.
If we get rid of a Bellerin, maybe, and someone younger comes in, and then we'll go with that, and we'll see him through. I don't
mind him. I don't
mind Cedric either. I think he's a great player.
Isn't it?
It's a bit like Pablo Mari. Pablo Mari is a great squad level player, and if he wants a squad role, then it's perfect. It's like El Neni. These are going to be the kind of players that you don't covet from any top four side, but you need them. Yeah,
I think Pablo Mari actually might surprise a few people.
I think he surprised a lot of people because nobody really knew what he was coming from. I swear, half the fan base still think he's Brazilian.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, what I like about him is he's. I mean, he's ridiculously handsome, which we've needed some better looking players in our squad for a long time. But no, he's an old fashioned modern centre half, if you know what I mean by that. He's a bit. Ruben Diaz has got a bit about him at Man City as well. That type of style. He's physical. He's tall, but he's elegant. But he doesn't try and do anything above his level. His passing is fine. His heading is good. His positional sense is decent. His pace is fine. He's just all round fine. It's kind of the Martin Keown of the modern day. Not quite as good a marker yet, I'd have to stress. But I actually think he might be a guy who long term might end up alongside Gabriel. And that's nothing against Holding, because I think Rob will get plenty of opportunities. But I have a suspicion that a Gabriel and Mari partnership might be what Arteta was looking at all along. But obviously we needed to see how his injury fared. But I could be wrong. It's happened many times.
I wonder how wed Arteta is to making sure that a left footer plays at the left side of centre back and a right footer plays on the right side of centre back, which, as great as I think it is our best centre back pairing, doesn't fit the system.
No.
Of Mari and Gabriel. But anyway, I will pass over to you, Chris. to read out some of the questions. I know we've touched on them, some of them already, but if there are any others that tickle your pickle.
I'm sure we can find a few. Let's give one to Ellis first of all. So I'm going straight from the top. Ellis, so some bloke called Cactus Cash. Sounds like a wrestler. God knows who he is. Sounds like a wrongman to me. Anyway, considering all social media posts and the fact that he could never get a sniff of first team action, do you think Saliba will ever actually play for us? I know we touched on it earlier, but do you think he'll ever play?
Well, yeah, you touched it. I didn't get a sniffing because you were good on your rant about a French
Go
player
for
getting
gold.
mistreated. I don't really know, mate. You probably know more than me, so I tend to edge with your feeling. I think he's just been so poorly treated by the club that I can't see him coming back. I hope he can come back. I hope he can be this player that you think he's got the ability to be. But sadly, and I just can't see it happening. Like I said, either or, whatever really happens to this scenario, the club have sort of fucked it up royally, and I just can't. I can't see him come back to us. I think he'll either have a good, successful loan at Nice, or an average loan at Nice, and then he'll move on regardless of how well he performs there. Even if he completely tears up trees, I think he's not going to want to come to us because, well,
why would
just
you
didn't give him an opportunity. Yeah, exactly.
Why would you swap playing for coming back somewhere where you're not going to play? Yeah, exactly.
I know there's a lot of the old stuff about him losing his parents and yada yada yada, but still, he should have had a chance or an opportunity at least, and I don't think he got it. And because he didn't get it, I think he'll be another one that got away. Great White Buffalo, whatever they're called in that Hot Tub Time Machine film.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Sophie asked me along the similar lines, am I doing okay with him going out on loan? And yes, Sophie, I am. Just because I'm really glad for him as a player. And as much as I say, I know it's a double-edged sword because I don't want to see Arsenal, ridiculed, but I hope we learn our lesson, and I hope he does really well and makes us look rather silly. Phil Macker, I'll give you this one as well, El, and then I'll go to Josh afterwards. Phil Macker, with Nketiah and Balogun situation, it reminds me of when we sold Andy Cole to Bristol City. Christ, that's a long time ago. Because he believed that George Graham believed Kevin Campbell would be the better player. Let's hope history doesn't repeat itself. I think that's a bit harsh on Super Kev, but I get the point from Phil Macker. Do you have that same issue? Like if I said to you can have one of Nketiah or Balogun, like do you think Balogun is the one with more potential? Oh
yeah, definitely. I'm a bit too young to really remember that with Andy Cole.
Yeah, whatever.
So yeah. But yeah, for me, Balogun's definitely got more potential, and not just from a point of view where I think he's, like you say, like he does seem that he's got a higher ceiling. I just think we've given enough chances to Eddie Nketiah, and he hasn't quite grasped the opportunity. And I'd rather pass the baton on to someone else to have a chance and have a go. I just, like you said, I just look at Eddie Nketiah, and he doesn't look physically like a proper striker to me. He doesn't. It might just be me being a bit harsh, but when I look at him, I don't think he's a Premier League proven striker that's going to bang in goals for one of the top 6, top 4, whatever. I just look at him and I think, yeah, he could probably do like Ryan Bruce has done and gone off to one of the lower league teams and probably do all right, probably score a few goals. But I just think he's had plenty of opportunities. There was when he came on against Norwich in the whatever cup it's called now, Carabao Cup or whatever it was then. Banged in 2 goals one from his first touch and another one, and you thought, yeah, everyone's shouting his name. You thought this guy's got potential, but that's 2 years ago now, or over 2 years ago, and he just hasn't taken the opportunity. So for me, I'd rather just hand it over to someone else to give a go. And from what I'm hearing, Balogun and what I've seen of Balogun, he looks like he's got the highest in. He looks like someone who's going to improve. Whereas to me, I just think the trajectory of Eddie Nketiah is just sort of plateaued a bit. It's just a bit flat. There's not really much going on, and I think he just needs to go get game time at a team that's more his level. Yeah. I'm with you on that one, and as with all these things, we want to be proven wrong, don't we? We hope that Nketiah. Well, I'd rather not, because if we sell him and he actually is good, then I'd definitely.
Oh yeah, well maybe not. Yeah, while he's proven wrong. Yeah, exactly. Josh Femster from this very parish, just looking at the current situation, do you think season ticket renewals? This is an interesting question, actually. Do you think the season ticket renewals that usually happen in June won't happen? Meaning Arsenal and others won't be spending like fans expect in the summer? I think that's a really good question because one thing that we've always looked at with the Cronkies is they're notoriously quite, shall we say, careful with their money, to put it politely. And they've only really ever spent what they knew we were going to be getting back. And as much as our shirts might be pretty again next season and our ridiculously funky sideline gear will sell out, without fans in the stadium, that's going to impact any budget Arteta has. So what do you think about
that? Having received a season ticket renewal last April during lockdown 1, not for our club, but for another club, I would completely think that we will get season renewals as per the norm. So yeah, I can't. It's not just going to be, oh, this is the Cronkies doing it. Every single club will be sending out, in my mind, bar maybe 1 or 2. Even the good family clubs that you'd think they'd be better than that will be sending out season ticket renewal stuff in the normal time that they do. So yeah, I will kind of see our spending be diminished a little bit because of what's happened this season. I think the stuff that we did so this way, there are some big deals that we made that aren't going to be like a burden for us next season. So like the Thomas Partey deal, we're not paying that off in installments. That was one lump sum, 50 mil, that's gone. So next season, we've got less that we're paying off. So maybe in the long run, we might be able to do something a little bit creative. We might have a bit more money than others around us necessarily, unless they've had transfer bans in the last 2 years, in which case they've got a load of money still piled up and we'll just splurge it on everybody and anyone about. But I think we have been fairly sensible with what we've done with the money as well. So whichever budget we're at, and I think, ironically, it seems like the players we're linked with are, say, if Arteta at City was shopping at Waitrose, we're currently at Sainsbury's.
Oh, I think we're lower than that. I think we're
Little Audi.
I don't think we're Little Audi, but I think we're Co-op. I think
we might be a bit.
Co-op is expensive, mate.
Yeah, but it's local. You don't have to travel to it. You don't have to go out of your way to find it. Yeah.
All right, Asda. We'll meet in the middle. And we'll go Walmart because we'll keep the Cronky link as well with Walmart. So yeah, I think it's a bit more of an Asda. You know, Ferran Torres versus Buendia, Brandt versus Kevin De Bruyne, Isco. They were linked with as much as we've been linked with Julian Draxler. It's it seems like that at the moment. So yeah, do I expect the club to be dropping a leaflet through your door in June? Yeah, because I expect every other club to be doing it as well.
Let me slightly expand on that and ask a similar question to Ellis. If you obviously work on the front lines in terms of caring for people that are experiencing the wonderful world of COVID-19 at the moment.
Yeah, where's my clap, by the way?
Oh, you
John.
Yeah, John will be delivering it when he gets back from the clinic. No, I wanted to ask you, like, do you think, because in my humble opinion, cynic with a capital Johnny Sins. Don't Google that, people. Please don't, especially at work. I think this whole COVID situation, I don't think we're going to see a normal 2021. Like, I think a lot of people are like, oh, we'd go to the new year, things will be a lot more normal before you know it. We'll all be off on holiday. I think we're still going to see a lot of what's going on now for many months to come. And I don't think we'll get back to anywhere near what people class as some form of normality until the very latter part of this year. And that's assuming that everything does go as is planned, which has already not happened, 3 times now. So with that in mind, if you think about this vaccine going out, the majority of football fans, I would imagine, Josh will probably know better than I would, but I imagine the age profile of most football fans in the modern era is somewhere in between sort of 18 to 43, 44, somewhere in that bracket. So not necessarily the bracket that are going to get the vaccines, therefore still going to be at risk. So even if we're able to get fans in stadiums, which even then I can't see us being anywhere near full capacity this calendar year, definitely not anyway, even if we're letting some in, Do you think the clubs might go down a different route, maybe in the summer, and say, right, now we need to go down this pay-per-view route, the TV route, maybe exploit the TV, maybe go down the Amazon route where you're paying for individual games, where they can actually then, that sounds harsh, but exploit the fan base and actually charge for a season ticket, maybe not £1,000 for an executive box or a high seat, but they could maybe say to a fan, right, we want £500 where you can watch every Arsenal game and you can get all this, access to all the player interviews, stats. Basically, you can watch anything you want from Arsenal, but for a subscription fee, like in the old days. Do you think that may be the way they monetize it?
I can't see that happening just because I think the TV companies and Amazon as well have got too much of a tight grip on all the games. I think it's going to be very difficult for individual clubs to get the rights to their games and sell them without having to sell them onto other subscription companies like your Amazons, like BT and Sky. And when they pay as much as they do to the Premier League, they're going to want sole rights to those games. So I can't see it happening. I'm not really sure how the clubs are going to monetize anything extra out of the fans. Like you say, I don't trust our government to get this vaccine rolled out and sorted within the year. I think, without getting too political, they've divvied a lot over the last year, and we're in the position we are because of less stricter rules at the right time. And it's just difficult. And I think it's a bit of a farce, in my personal opinion, that football's even still going ahead.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. I like to watch football. I'm not going to stop watching football whilst it's on. But there's a lot of people out there that aren't football fans that are having to sit in, if they're in England, have to sit and can't see their friends or their family and can't do anything. Yet, however many overpaid people can run around and do their hobby just because money talks, essentially, and they can get tests and they can isolate properly and they can run it sensibly. But it's just a bit shit. Whether it will affect football in the summer, I'm not sure. From an Arsenal point of view, I think there's going to be a lot of outgoings from us, so that will hopefully give us a bit more cash to sign other players. And I agree cynically with Josh. I think they will roll out the season tickets. They will charge the same price they always do. Some people probably will drop off the season ticket waiting list because they'll quite rightly think we're probably not going to get to any games, if any. And they'll offer it to more people, but there will always be people on that list that want a season ticket, regardless if they know or they have high suspicions they're not going to get to the ground this year, but they'd rather get it because, like you said earlier, we are, fan base wise, a massive club. It doesn't matter where we are on the table. A lot of people support us. A lot of people are desperate to watch us. But again, will it be this year? Probably not. Will we have a period again in September time when they try and roll back the fans? Yeah, probably, because the vaccine would have been rolled out. There'll probably be more measures put in place and we will see fans back in the stadium, but not to a full capacity. No way. How they're going to try and make money, especially a club like Arsenal, where a lot of our revenue comes from matchday revenue, a lot of our money is made that way, is probably going to impact us in the long term. But we've seen, and I didn't think I would see it, but we've seen the Kroenkes dip their hand in their pocket to help us out when they've had to. And I think potentially, and they'll see that way as well, they'll see them now, their majority owners, I should say, they'll see that they've got to put a bit more in to get a bit more out because of the financial situation we're in because of the pandemic. Yeah. But I can't see, to answer your question, I can't see Arsenal or any other Premier League club being able to provide that sort of package. They might try something along the lines of maybe not the actual match on TV, but maybe a bit more sort of in-depth analysis for another post-match and pre-match shows with live commentary, but not with the actual picture of the football.
Yeah, something sort of like it used to be in the old days of the Arsenal Online. You had to pay a subscription fee to be in it and whatnot. Yeah. I agree with you. And on the matchday revenue as well, something else that I think a lot of people have overlooked with every club in the Premier League is you think of the amount of overseas tourists that literally fly in to see games. That's not
especially London games, especially Arsenal. People sometimes go to that club not like flying solely to see Arsenal. They might be in London for the weekend, and it's not a posh club, but a desirable place to go watch football.
Yeah, our very own Ozil was planning to do that, of course, this time last year. We were talking about it the other day. So, that's going to affect people coming in and out of the country. So, yeah, some weird old times ahead. Another one from Cactus for you, Josh. I should just mention James Howson said about Eddie or Balogun, who should we keep, who should we sell. We've kind of covered that one, so I just wanted to give James a mention. Cactus has brought up 2 other players that is worth mentioning. Josh, if you had to sell either Willock or Nelson as a deal to bring in Buendia, what would you countenance that deal? Which one would you choose, Willock or Nelson?
I think I might answer this one too quickly. Reece Nelson.
I think that's the obvious choice.
I think it's.
Where's he gone?
Problem is, I think he's got a bit of the, a little bit of the Salibas. You know, he wanted. Arteta had said, you know what, Reece, we've got a fuck ton of wingers at the club at the moment. If you think to it, that again, simple. You got 2 left wingers, 2 right wingers. You've got Martinelli, Aubameyang on the left, Saka and Pepe on the right.
Yep.
Reece Nelson's not in that picture, so he's not going to get there. Then you got Willian floating around, gobbling up everybody else's minutes if he's available. And you know, he was offered to go out on loan, and he said, "You know what? I'll stay and I'll fight for my place. I'll try and get into the squad." Which, fair play to him, he's tried that. But I think when you look at it in the cold light of day, he needs to get out there and move on. And we don't have right now in this point of the club, we don't have a huge amount of depth in central midfield and players that can play. You know, not saying that Willock is a number 10, but he has played a false 9 role for us, so he understands roughly what's required and can play. He's played out on the right a little bit for Arteta, so he kind of does that interplay and kind of will understand that. Reece Nelson, for me, doesn't have that same kind of quality that means he could play in central midfield, which at the point of an injury crisis, we're going to have, at least from somewhere, a winger available. If we have an injury crisis in central midfield, we're going to look stupid if Joe Willock isn't at the club.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you're right, and I feel like Willock still has a bit of growing to do, whereas Nelson, I think I would probably like to see him stay and be given a shot, but time is against him. He's had a long spell without, and again, he's got sort of Crystal Palace kind of written all over him to me. But still, we shall see. What else we got here for Ellis? Funky Chris has sent in 3 questions. Shall we merge them all? We'll try and merge them all into kind of one monster question.
They are all monster questions.
And see where we go, yeah. So, Ozil, Saka, Mustafi, kill one. Oh, we'll save that one. Would you go down? Hang on, no, we'll save that one.
This would be a horrible merge question if you did merge them.
Yeah, it would be a horrible merge question. Leon will let Arsenal sign Hussein for 25 million, but on one condition: you smash Dani's GFP over the head with a banjo. Do you do it? I mean, I'd smash Dani over the head with a banjo for free, just for that. Just like, can you imagine the sound that would make? I mean, I would do that for free. I wouldn't really need to worry about anything else. Any other objects anyone would hit Dani with?
I mean, Ellis's banjo is probably prized to him, because who else is he going to play little tunes to outsiders on when they come in?
Very true. And you've got to think about these things, you know. So, exactly. I mean, you know, I would be fine with hitting Dani over the head with anything. So I'm good with that. Yeah, I might come back to Funky's other questions. Let's have another proper one, shall we? Sorry, Funky. Actually, that might be it. Is that it? Oh no, sorry.
No, there's more in there.
From Jimmy
and Stefan.
Yeah, let's do Stefan's. What level would you put Europa League group stages opponents? Is that affecting how Arteta views those performances? Ellis, what do you think to that? It's a good point, I think.
That's a weird noise that I just made with my mouth.
That's an interesting noise.
What level would you put our Europa League? Who are they again? I've forgotten. One was that goal, wasn't it?
Rapid Vienna.
Yeah.
Dundalk.
And
thanks,
Stefan.
Mulder.
Good question.
Mulder. Yeah. Moldy. Yeah.
What level? Like from what? Like 1 to 10, 10 being like world class, 1 being
I think there's already quite a nice defined system of leagues that you could drop these teams into if you want to use that instead of 1 to 10.
Or you could compare them to like Premier League teams, couldn't you? You could maybe do that. I suppose you could.
Probably not. You probably need to dip into the Championship.
Yeah, they are probably Championship or like probably even League One. Some of them, to be fair. Like, I don't know if that's affecting Arteta's views on it, but it is what it is. We are in the second-rate European competition, and we will come up against these people. Will we consider? Well, I don't know. What do you think with Arteta? Because we've not really seen him do it to a great deal. So when we start picking up the Champions League dropouts in the knockout stages, do you think he'll stick with his teams that he has been playing, or do you think he's going to end up putting out a stronger team? I personally think he'll probably put out a stronger team just because we are pretty shit. And if we can somehow put together a run in the Europa League and win it, God forbid, it could happen. You're in the Champions League and you're laughing. So I don't think he'll continue with the kids. I think he'll probably. I think that the reason we saw so many of them was because, like Stefan's questions alluding to, they are quite low level to put it bluntly.
No, I agree with you. I think he has to play stronger teams. Benfica are no pushovers, by the way. So I think we need to be that will be a tough tie compared to what we have been facing. That will be a tough tie. So I think he'll go stronger. Do you think the same, Josh? I just can't see.
Yeah, that's normally a quarter-final, semi-final kind of draw in this kind of thing. A team that is generally a regular in the Champions League group stage. I think Benfica were just say unfortunate that they weren't in the Champions League.
Yeah, just outside.
They were just outside last year, but COVID has thrown a lot of teams into certain places that they weren't before. Lyon not even in Europe this year. It's kind of shown that COVID did some weird things with how leagues decided to finish them off. So I'd kind of leave that one on the fence, but I think we will see generally just basically everyone you think is a rotation player will play that game, probably with one of Aubameyang or Lacazette starting up front.
I think we will see a different side, and I think the one thing it did do is, to answer Stefan's question there, it did give the opportunity to some of those lower down the road players, so we can be thankful for that. Because Christ, can you imagine if we'd have been losing games in that competition whilst losing games in the league? Bloody hell, it really would have been doom, wouldn't it? Jesus. And it also gave underperforming players an opportunity to play themselves back into form a bit as well, which is useful. Josh, you can have this one from Jimmy. If Arsenal sign less than 6 players in the winter transfer window, what's the best method for writing in the streets?
Jimmy's just upset because Mesut Ozil's been linked with a move to his MLS club.
His MLS club, yeah.
I think that's the bigger problem. And that if he goes and assumes we're going to sign 6 players, Julian Brandt might be one of them. And as he supports Bayer Leverkusen as well, that's a good thing from C.
Like Jimmy gets around with his clubs, doesn't he? What a slag.
I know, right? To be honest, I think I've said it already, but I'm definitely going to put it on record again. There's only one player that I think we need to get us through to the summer, and that's just a creative player. I don't think we need to be signing a boatload of players in because we've got a massively bloated squad, if nobody has noticed. We need to get rid of about 6 or 7 players and replace it with one. That's all we need to do.
Yeah.
Buendia is then. And all we've got to do, Awara, is it Awara? Who was it? I can't remember Chris's question. Just someone hit Dani over the head with a banjo, and the midfielder will come in.
Someone hit Dani, and the rest will look after itself. Basically, is what we're saying. It's an interesting situation in terms of writing. No matter what Arsenal do, it will be wrong anyway. We all know that. So that's facts, isn't it? I think this is the last question. Gumma Ventura, do you think it's possible to reach Champions League football? If so, which do you think is more realistic, top 4 or Europa League? I mean, for me, it's Europa League, But then you look at the Premier League table and it's an absolute farce at the moment where everyone's beating everybody, and you think, well, actually, I mean, I don't know, maybe. I don't think we're out of reach of like top 6. I think top 4 maybe a little bit of a stretch, but it just depends, doesn't it? For me, Europa League personally. Thoughts?
I would say I'm going to be controversial. I think top 4. Top 4's there for us potentially. I know there's a lot of what doesn't help is Man City have got 2 games in hand basically on everybody else, so they're arguably top of the table. I think no, my maths isn't right. They'd be on 35. Oh yeah, they would be top of the table on 35 points. But then you're looking at Leicester City. Brenda, you know what he's like when he gets towards the end of a season. Something's going to fall over, or Jamie Vardy's going to get an injury. They are very brittle, shall we say. One player out ruins their entire season. And I think the same goes for the team in North London as well, the other team. But unfortunately, if that little Korean chap gets injured, they're fucks. So yeah, we've got a bit more to us, and I think we could push for top 4.
What do you reckon? How do you think that's?
As mad as it is, like I literally just looked at the table while you two were talking, and we're on 23 points, and Spurs, who've got a game in hand, and City have got 2 games in hand of us, are also on 20. Well, a lot of people on 29, so literally 6 points away, not by goal difference, but by being on the same points as the top 4 or the 4th place position team, which is crazy to think how bad our form has been. I think more realistic is Europa League personally, just because of the way that we strung a few good wins together in the FA Cup post lockdown. I just think our form is just too iffy. But I think that time of year, hopefully, look, Partey's not too far away from coming back to us. Hopefully, we can sort of get a bit of momentum in the league and get an easier run in the Europa League, and I could see us qualifying that way. I just think we're too far off the top, like the top 6 teams, like Man City, Spurs. I know Spurs are quite flaky, but the way they're playing, Leicester again could drop off, and then Chelsea, they're up and down as well. But I just think we're more up and down than everyone else, if that makes sense. And I can't see us putting together too much of a run with the inadequacies that we have in our squad.
I'd like to say we're joint 5th at the moment.
Joint 5th.
Joint 5th.
We're joint 5th. If you work it out and put everything together, we're joint 5th in the table. I mean, if anybody would like to end this podcast on a positive note, it is the fact we're joint 5th.
Take that while we can.
I can sort of see where you're coming from in terms of the fact that if you look at that table, it is just one of those like, is it like if you win 2 games, or like we've done 3 on the spin, we were in crisis a week ago, and now all of a sudden we're fine. Like it's how the wind blows.
If you ignore goal difference, we're joint 5th.
What's our fixtures? You've got Newcastle Saturday, haven't we?
Yeah, we have a very good
FA Cup
run
Saturday,
coming up.
Palace.
Yeah. That's a
Newcastle.
That's on a
Palace again.
Palace, Newcastle. Then we go to. Do you play Wolves?
I don't know. I'm trying to get it
Wolves
now.
Next?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find
Stupid Sky Sports app.
I mean, I actually have them. I don't know why I'm guessing. It's Newcastle. Sorry, we play the FA Cup. Then we get Palace at home, Newcastle at home, Southampton away, Man United
another
at
round
home.
of FA Cup if we qualify.
There's another round in there. We then play Man United at home.
Easy, that
Wolves
shit right
away.
now.
Yeah, Wolves away, and then we're into February, where we got Villa, Leeds, then Benfica. But I'll stop there. Otherwise, I'm just going to read the entire fixture list.
And in the 2021-2022 season, we'll be starting the league with.
But we look at those fixtures, and there's plenty of winnable games, isn't there?
Yeah, even before our sort of current form, I probably would have said most of the Mother United game were winnable, even with how bad we were. But now with a bit wind under our sails, you never know.
We've only got one game against the typical top 6 away from home as well in this part of the season. Everyone else we've got at the Emirates. It's only Chelsea towards the end that we play away. So it's not a bad group. I mean, Chelsea will probably have a good manager by then. That's the only downside.
I'll probably spend a shitload in the January transfer window as well.
Yeah.
I think what you can positively say is I don't think it can get much worse than what it was.
Oh God, never say that.
Like in terms of like everyone, sorry.
Yeah, and that's on you now. When this all goes horribly wrong, that is on you.
But everyone was out of form at one point, and people are still out of form. Aubameyang is still out of form. Other players are still out of form. Willian will probably never play a good game for Arsenal for as long as he lives, but you never know. If he suddenly turns around, then it will be a lot better than what we are now. We're winning 3 games in a row, and we've only got like 3 youngsters that are playing well.
Well, I mean, but you're absolutely right. To be fair, that's just fact.
Obviously, it go the other way, and everyone can turn to shit, and people will just start losing limbs left, right, and centre, and we'll just have
which is also just as possible. To be fair, but I guess.
Cool.
I mean, I
is
think
that the end of the questions, Chris?
I think it is. Yeah, unless you want to go down the route of Funky Chris's elegant questions, which I'll leave that up to you. But
I would love to. However, I've just looked at what the time currently says in our top corner. We've been going 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Oh, that's way more than is needed. Yeah,
that is way too much longer than needed. No one wants to be knowing.
Happy New Year, everyone.
We're doing certain things to, and I'm not even sure if he means that spelling of gorilla to be the activist kind or the other kind. And Ellis is going to get told off if he doesn't finish now. Anyway,
and in our defence, we haven't done a pod for 2 weeks, so we've sort of given you like extra kind of bits and bobs that we wouldn't normally.
And that's not your fault, listeners. That's our fault, but also your fault. You're going to have to deal with it for 2 hours of us. But anyway, I better wrap this up. What else am I going to say? We will be back for the Newcastle game in the FA Cup. Nobody knows who's on that show because nobody replied to Dani other than Dani. So he's the only one doing it at the moment in a one-man show. I'd like to say thank you to my guests whilst ignoring the ticker at the bottom. Ellis, it's been an absolute pleasure, I suppose, to have you back on. It's been a while.
Sorry, I can't keep looking at Dani's shit. I've loved it, mate. I've missed it. Hopefully fixtures permit. I've got a lot of time in my hands at the moment. Well, I haven't actually. I'll be busy at work, but it's not like I'm doing anything else when I'm not at work other than helping children study. But it's been lovely. And we're actually winning games. You could almost say, because I've come on a podcast, I've turned it around. So you're all welcome.
You could say that, but John's also stopped podding at that time, so you're going to have to take it up on yourself. And of course, got to say goodbye to the pirate, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. I mean, you don't need to say goodbye to me. It's fine.
I don't really.
But you are more than welcome, sir. I'm sure I shall grace these shores at some point again soon, if not Twitter.
Exactly. And of course, if you do enjoy what we do, whichever platform you're listening to us, ensure you subscribe on that one. And if you do have accounts for any other platform that you can find us on and haven't subscribed to us, just do it anyway. Why not? Give us a like whilst you're there as well, because every little helps. And this time of need for everybody, I know podcasts probably aren't the top of everybody's lists, but when you're stuck indoors all day, can't go out because of the shitty little virus, just stick us on. We'll have a little chat and you can go, God, that's why I hate the general public and being inside is great. So Dani, do the honours, switch this shit off.